Congratulations! You are tuned into Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Show, the #1 podcast for Fortune 500 executives and those who are dedicated to creating a quantum leap in leadership. Your host, Dov Baron, is the founder of FullMontyLeadership.com. He's an executive mentor to leaders like you, a contributing writer for Entrepreneur Magazine, CEO World, and he's been featured on CNN, Fox, CBS, and many other notable sites. Dov Baron is an international business speaker who was named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 leadership speakers to hire.
Welcome, dear friends, fans, and fellow aficionados of leadership excellence. Thank you for joining us here on this episode of Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Tips for Executives, part of the Full Monty interview series, where today we will look at the need for and the gross lack of mentorship in leadership, particularly when it comes to women. That being said, you should know that this is a subject that is vital to both men and women. If you're a new listener, new viewer to the show, I want to thank you for joining us. Strap yourself in, we're about to go full Monty. And if you're a regular, big thank you for you for keeping us at the #1 spot in the Fortune 500 category and a bunch of other leadership categories. Thank you for sharing the show with everybody that you know, and we really appreciate it. So get yourself over to iTunes, rate, review, and subscribe to the show. All right, let's strip it down and dive right in. Watching and listening to this show, you're either a high-level executive, an entrepreneur, or a leader in some capacity. And as leaders, in whatever the form is, there's a good chance that where you are, you were mentored along the way. Now, the truth is that a poor mentor can actually encumber your progress. However, a great mentor can cut your learning curve drastically and quickly have you stand on the shoulders of those who have gone before you. However, simply finding a good mentor, let alone a great one, can be extremely challenging, particularly in today's world as a woman. My guests today on this episode are W. Brad Johnson, PhD, Captain David Smith, PhD. They are the co-authors of a brand new book called Athena Rising: How and Why Men Should Mentor Women. Dr. Brad Johnson is a professor of psychology in the Department of Leadership, Ethics, and Law, that's not small, at the United States Naval Academy, and a faculty advisor in the Graduate School for Education at Johns Hopkins University. He is a clinical psychologist, former lieutenant commander in Navy Medical Service Corps, with credentials that just go up the hoo-haa. Dr. Johnson has authored more than 100 journal articles and book chapters, many on the topic of mentoring, 12 books in the area of mentoring, professional ethics, and counseling. His partner in writing this book is Captain David Smith, PhD, and he is an active duty U.S. Navy captain, associate professor of sociology at the Department of Leadership, Ethics and Law, United States Naval Academy, again, not small stuff, having served 4 years in the chair. And in fact, they were nailing him to the chair because he wanted to get up, but they made him stay. He's a former U.S. Navy pilot, and he's led diverse organizations for men, women, culminating in the command of a squadron in combat, and flew more than 3,000 hours over 19 years, including mission combats in Iraq and Afghanistan. As a sociologist trained in military sociology, social psychology, he focuses research on gender, work, and family issues. Dr. Smith is also the author of numerous journal articles and book chapters, many of the topics of gender in the workplace. His recent publications include Leadership and Peer Behavior, Women in Combat in Military Medicine. Wow, that was a massive introduction. 2016. Here they are. Good to have you on. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us.
Good to be here, Doug, for having us, Doug.
It's my pleasure, mates. I'm happy to have you here. Now, you say that your research showed that you went for 4 years of research, and it revealed that the effects of mentorship can be profound, it can be enduring, and a strong mentoring relationship has the capacity to transform an individual and entire organizations. But the mentorship landscape is unequal, and it's very much harder for women to find mentors than it is for men. Tell us, very simply, why is that? Why is it so hard for women to find a decent mentor?
Yeah. I'll start with a women piece, and Dave can tell you why guys don't do this stuff.
Right.
But when women enter an organization, they often are looking around for somebody who looks like them, another woman. It'd be great if I could get mentored by a senior woman. Yeah. Unfortunately, many organizations like the ones we work for, military, finance, tech, don't have a lot of senior women. And so I look around, I'm a new woman, I don't see anyone who looks like me. And the few women who are there may be so busy and overwhelmed with the demands for mentoring, they don't have time for this. Mm-hmm. There may be competition among the women who are there. It becomes fierce competition for the very few spots that are going to be available for women. And senior women realize that they're under the microscope. Everyone's watching them. And if they take a risk on a junior woman and it doesn't go well, it may create problems for them. So for a variety of reasons, women just may not be in the mix when I'm looking for a mentor.
So at a simple numbers level, there's just not enough women in those positions to put their hand up and say, I'll mentor you.
There's not enough women around, and then enter, the issue of guys. The problem, Dave and I call this the reluctant man syndrome, the reluctant male mentor syndrome. Guys are reluctant. They sit on the sidelines. There are all these very promising junior women entering the organization. They don't step up and mentor, and there are different reasons for it. Bias. I see, whether I'm aware of it or not, I see these junior women as ticking baby machines. I think, they're not going to be as committed as their male counterparts. They're going to step away and have children. It's not a good investment. Even if I'm not aware of that, that could be some bias going on. I worry about what people will think. If I'm mentoring this maybe attractive junior woman, gosh, rumors, perceptions, I don't need that. I may also worry about saying the wrong thing. What if I put my foot in my mouth with a woman, or make an odd comment that she finds offensive? And then there are a lot of guys, Dove, who just don't know how to do intimacy in the workplace that's not sexual. I've got all these scripts for how to interact with women, but they don't have to do with an intimate, caring relationship in the workplace. That makes me anxious, so I just avoid. So for all those reasons, right. Guys may sit on the sidelines.
But that's you've hit actually some really key points that I think is really important for us to sort of dig into and investigate a little bit. First of all, we've got gender conditioning right off the bat. We've got political correctness on top of that. On top of that, and we're going to get into it a little bit further on, but for me at least, because I am a mentor, that's actually what I do as a mentor, I don't believe you can have a genuine, powerful, significant mentoring relationship, mentor-mentee relationship, unless, and these are my words, and I learned them from a great military psychiatrist, M. Scott Peck, which is, I cannot serve people I don't love. So there's an intimacy there. I've got to fall in love with you. Not in a romantic sense. When I take a client on, there's a whole qualification process for me to take them on. And I say, okay, you got in. Great. Now, here's the deal. We have a first contract. It's a lump of time, a block of time that we're going to be together. At the end of that contract, there's a review process in which you can review if you want to continue, but I get to review too. And I say, I'll just tell you my qualification. If you're doing the work, that's great. But if I'm not in love with you, we're not going to continue. And they go, oh. And I go, no, I don't mean... I don't mean romantically, and I actually mean if I don't feel those feelings for you, if I don't care enough to love you, then I can't mentor you. And I think for a lot of guys, that is a difficult conversation with a woman, particularly if I'm a married man or you're a married woman, So how do you guys, obviously this is what Athena Rising is about. How do you guys get guys to get over that, shit in their own head or maybe in their partner's head that there's maybe something going on, or maybe that woman's partner's head? How do you help them to get over that?
Yeah, I think part of it, as Brad was hitting on, we talk about these scripts we have for particular relationships that we all understand. So, we're all sons, and some of us are fathers to daughters. And again, so we have all these different relationships, and we might have wives or partners or significant others. So we know what those look like, right? And so, guys get kind of anxious about this. Can be really anxious about it, and can fall back on these man scripts. But to some extent, that's somewhat functional in the sense that it helps guys to get over the anxiety. But on the other side, obviously it's going to be undermining and disempowering, and it's not going to be a good relationship as a mentor-mentee in that sense. So calling it out and understanding and seeing these different kind of scripts that we go through, and having guys recognize how these are challenging in the mentee relationship is really valuable in that way, I think. So, having them just kind of having some exposure, and a lot of this really is kind of exposure therapy, if you think about it, right? Sure. So I have never mentored a woman. Well, guess what? They're probably not all that different from you in lots of ways. Right. They may have some unique experiences, but if you spend some time thinking about it and talking to them and asking them, and by the way, listening to them a little bit.
That would help.
That helps, right? We're not always all that great at listening. We're good at dispensing lots of guidance and advice, but not always the right kind, because we haven't listened to our mentees in that way.
Yeah, and Dov, it's interesting. You mentioned, I got to fall in love with you. If I don't know that I would say that to a woman. And not because I don't get what you're saying. There's a lot of stuff out there showing that the best mentorships are what we might call companionate love. They really get to that. Yep. This is kind of a terrific relationship. We're engaged. There's trust. There's some intimacy that's appropriate. There's good friendship. Sometimes when you say, I'm going to fall in love with you,
I'm not suggesting they say that. I'm saying that that's what I do.
Yeah, I can see women the other way.
But it is about that connection.
Yes.
Scott Peck. I was trained like you guys. I was trained in psychology, and when I was trained in psychology, the rule was you have to remove yourself emotionally from your clients. Right? Never call them patients, clients, because I don't believe in broken people, but clients. You have to remove yourself emotionally from them. And that never sat with me. It never sat right. Always felt off. And then back in the very early 80s, I read M. Scott Peck's The Road Less Traveled from this military psychiatrist who, in my head at least, it's not necessarily the truth, was going to be a hard ass and was going to be anything but emotionally at that level. And, and he talked about that needing to deeply love his patients, because they were his patients. He was a psychiatrist. And that for me was like, that's it. That's what it is. And so I'm secure enough to say I can, I need to fall in love with you. I'm not suggesting that for anybody else, but to recognize for yourself that you are going to have that level of intimacy that is reciprocal and non-sexual.
That's a great point, right? It has to be a mutual relationship, and often guys don't think about it that way. We think about this all-knowing, wise guru who is providing all this wisdom to the mentee, and that is not a good mentoring relationship in most cases, right? And so back to listening, right? If we can reframe it as a more of a learning orientation and have a little humility as we go into this, we think that that's really valuable. And the other thing that I think we like to focus on is the guys don't always understand what's in it for them.
Right.
So besides you talked about gender conditioning, so they've learned what all the challenges are and maybe the pitfalls are so all the downsides to maybe mentoring a young woman. But nobody's ever talked to them about the positives and what's really in it for them. And so I think reframing it for guys in that way, again, the light comes on and they're like, oh, wow. So this is something that I actually gain from doing this.
Right.
Yeah. And then, Dov, with the whole love thing, I think what Dave and I say to guys is do the work. If you want to frame it as loving her in terms of commitment, I would say do the work. I don't know that I need to tell her I'm going to fall in love with her, but I'm going to do the work of loving her. And we even tell guys, don't insist on calling yourself a mentor. Don't, the M word, it communicates stuff to her that, there's some ownership, you're mine. And we tell guys, just do the work, be a terrific mentor, care about her, be in her corner. The day that she calls you a mentor, that's great. And then you'll know you've done your work well.
Yeah, but I think that that's a really good input. And I think that that world of mentoring has changed dramatically. Brad, maybe I'm wrong, but I think that you and I are probably closer in age. And what I mean by that is that the conditioning about what it meant to be a mentor might have even been different. I know it's vastly different than what it means to a millennial today. In my world, when I entered into business, I mentored somebody who was below me, and I had that looking down thing, and it was supposed to be that way. And one of the things that we speak about in my work when we go into companies and organizations is that idea of mentoring down is dead. It's dead in the water. Mentoring is down, it's up, and it's across. And that's what mentoring should be. And that's what I was hearing there from you, Dave, which is grasping that I'm going to get as much out of this as you are. And I think that is a great way to sort of let me just shove my ego to the side. Yes, I may have more experience, but you've got more innovation. You've got something new to bring to me that I may never have considered. And I think that that's an important piece for us all to remember in the mentoring position.
Yeah. And we've heard that over and over with the interviews we did in the book with again, we're interviewing some very senior, high-flying women. And, of course, their male mentors who are older than them, again, were just as high-flying.
Sure.
And to a T, they would talk about how they almost felt guilty that they were getting more out of their mentoring relationship than their mentee was. So that's really telling when you think about it and you hear these guys looking back, reflecting back on their experiences with these young women.
Yeah, and there's more to it. These guys will say that I became, my emotional intelligence went up from mentoring her. I learned how to listen. I learned more about my own feelings and what was going on in the relationship, which then made me a better spouse and partner and father. It affected my life broadly.
Yeah. This book, Athena Rising, that you guys, first of all, what prompted you to write that? Because I know you've written about family stuff and you've written about mentoring, but Athena Rising, about the need for women to be mentored by men. And because the obvious, put your hand up and ask the question is, dude, have you noticed you're a guy and that you are blokes talking about mentoring women? So what prompted you guys to write this?
Yeah, so it's funny you say that. When we first started talking about our project to our colleagues and other people, we got exactly what you said several times, over and over again. They would say, "Do you realize you're two dudes?
Did you go to the bathroom and check? You're still guys."
Yeah, as if we had forgotten that, exactly. we were two guys. So, the motivation really had to do with just looking first we looked at the literature, Dov, and we saw that women just don't get mentored with the same frequency and the same effectiveness. So women are being left by the wayside in a lot of professions and a lot of businesses. You just don't see women getting mentored. We work in an organization where there are far fewer women in the military. There are far fewer women available to mentor them. It's very clear to us if guys don't step up and figure out how to do this and develop, we would say the kahunas, to do this well, that these women are not going to get mentored. And so it's a bottom line issue that way. But we also, I've got a sister I care about, and she's in the military, and I want men to step up and be an effective mentor for her. And Dave's got a daughter I know he cares about, and same sort of thing. So there was both personal and professional motivation for this.
A lot of this was coming at the time when Sheryl Sandberg had just written Lean In, and we'd had a chance to work a little bit with Sheryl at the Naval Academy. And a conversation, I had with her about the fact that, hey, she said, we need more men like you talking about these issues and engaging in the conversation. And I said, exactly, because there's too many in a room, too many women talking to other women about the issues they're having about finding a mentor and being professionally developed so they can be promoted and move up into higher leadership. And she goes, but there's no guys.
Yeah.
There's no guys talking to each other. And so, and that's part of the message in her book as well, is that, hey, guys have got to be engaged in this. And it's not just for the women, but it's good for them. And it's good for the bottom line of the company. So this is where we came at. We decided that, hey, who's better in a better foundation, a better place than two dudes to come talking to a bunch of other guys about, hey, why aren't you mentoring other women? And to discuss these things that we know already about guys' behavior and why they don't.
Yeah, as we spoke about in a previous conversation before we recorded, I'm very in favor of this. I have the hashtag he the number 4 she, because I really see, again, it's my belief, it's not the truth, but my belief is that the world will be changed by women, not by men. We've made balls of it for a long time. We need some feminine energy in there. We need but we need women who, you see, I think that part of the challenge is that because males have dominated so hard, that as women come up, they take on that masculinity, they take on that bravado, and they try to outdo the dudes. They try to out-masculine the men. And for me, that's a massive challenge. And it's part of the challenge of men mentoring women is then that a woman thinks she's got to be that. And what you guys were saying that I think is important is for guys to grasp that I'm supposed to get something out of this too. Not to try and turn this woman into a guy, because I don't know who anybody voted for who's watching this show, but I wrote an article recently about women and said, have women given up their fight for equality because 43% of women voted for Donald Trump, with a lot of obvious laws coming into place that would certainly not empower women. Yet they voted for him. Now, whatever their reasons were, I'm not judging them on that. But on the other side of that, I can't say that if I was an American, I would have put my hand up and voted for Hillary either, because for me, again, not the truth, for me, she appeared to be in that world. She's grown up in that world. She's been part of that world, a woman trying to be a guy. And I've said, if you really want, somebody says, well, who would you vote for? And I say, Oprah. I'd vote for Oprah. Because for me, here's a woman who's in her power. She understands her power, and she's not trying to be a guy. She brings everything that we need to learn about leadership from a woman while still owning her femininity and still being able to fully step into the power of being a leader. And I think that this is what we as guys have got to grasp, is how much is in it for us, like you said, Brad, at the level of emotional intelligence of what we can gain. Yeah. Because we're judging leadership by male standards. We're judging mentoring by male standards, and it's a false bar. We really have to shift that, because in some research that was done in the 90s, women scored lower as leaders than men for one simple reason: that they were more team focused. It wasn't about their vision; it was about the collective vision, and so they got scored low. Dudes, wake the heck up! This is a good thing.
Yeah. I'm going to let Dave comment on this, because this is his area. But I got to tell you, one of the things we talk about in the book, Dove, is when you're mentoring a woman, you have got to guard against this tendency guys have to try and clone themselves. And that includes their own leadership style, very masculine leadership style. I got to be very careful to take a step back, watch how she's leading, because not only will I learn some stuff, that could be her style that's working very well. So I'd like to hone that, not clone her. So we talk about honing, not cloning.
Honing, not cloning. I love that. That's great.
Yeah. Look what's working, see if it works for her, help her tweak her style, but let it be her style. And it may be more egalitarian, it may be more democratic. She's probably a better communicator, probably better with emotions in her leadership style. So watch her, learn from her, and then help her shape that, but don't try and recreate her in your own image.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, clearly what you've been addressing is this double bind that women experience, and they have their own leadership style, and if they don't adhere to it, they get in the leadership role, as a woman, then they get the backlash against her for not acting like a man in that leadership position. But if she acts, it works both ways. And so she ends up feeling like she can't win. But those, again, as her mentor, we need to be watching for that and seeing how it's playing out in a variety of different ways about men's perceptions, again, the standards that we're holding women to, that are fair, make sure that they are fair, and then calling them out. And this is the hard part. As guys, at some point, we have to call it the way it is. And getting guys to stand up in a room full of other guys and go, no, that's not right, and here's why, is a really hard thing to do.
Yeah. And related to this stuff, we heard, I can't tell you how many of the women we interviewed said, and it's the same story, it just took place in all kinds of different organizations. There I am, I'm in the boardroom, I'm there for the big meeting, I'm finally at the executive table, and I make a contribution, say something creative, everyone gives muted, oh, okay, that's nice. And then three people later, a dude says exactly or nearly the same thing, and everyone's like, wow, that is terrific. And what they often said is, you've got to have a mentor. If your male mentor is in the room, several of the women said, my mentor just kind of went and said, oh, time out, help me understand. How's that any different than what Kathy just said 10 minutes ago? And that kind of advocacy, I think, helps draw attention to the fact that her style and her leadership may be just as effective, but guys have to learn to listen to it and not dismiss her.
There's also this idea that, it's back to perceptions of women, how men, as we look at them, we will make assumptions about them as well. So a woman has just had a baby or has young children, or maybe not. Maybe she's married, and so you make assumptions about her time and what she's available to do, what she wants to do, or what she doesn't want to do. And again, we had countless male mentors who talked about how they caught themselves or others caught them, again, making assumptions about what these women wanted to do or not want to do based on the fact that they were women and they were married or they had kids.
Yeah, it's fascinating. One of the things that I want to clear up here, because I think there may be I know there are misconceptions, and maybe it's happening here as people are viewing this show. And it really does I believe it sort of taps into that piece around home versus clone, which I really like. With your backgrounds, help the viewer, help the listener clean this up, because what do you guys see as the distinction between counseling, coaching, and mentoring? Because I think, I'm a mentor, and people go, well, he's not like a coach. And I go, well, and they go, oh, so it's like a counselor. No. So help from your perspective, with your backgrounds and what you're teaching here, what you're sharing in the book, help our viewers, our listeners, to grasp what is the distinction between those three categories: the therapist, the coach, versus the mentor.
Yeah, and we probably add sponsor to that list as well.
Sponsors in there as well.
Yeah.
So let me just start with mentoring, because I think that's the broader relationship. And you're a mentor, so that means that essentially what you're doing is caring, or loving, as you said. Yep. You're caring broadly for your mentee. You want them to do well, not just in terms of career. You certainly want to champion their career, but you care about them personally too. You want them to do well in life. You want them to be happy. You want all of that to go well. You care about their dream and their aspirations. And I think you're a global champion for that person when you're really serving as a mentor. Coaching, counseling, sponsoring, these are all good things, but they're a bit more discreet. They're problem focused. If you're coaching someone, it usually implies executive coaching, where somebody maybe is missing something in their leadership, toolbox, and you're going to help them develop that. Maybe they're not doing very well with having difficult conversations at work. So a good coach coaches them through just that skill set. A counselor does the same thing when somebody's suffering emotionally. I'm going to try and address something that's not going well. And a sponsor may just sort of open doors for somebody at work. It doesn't say anything about a broader relationship. We may not be very committed to each other. I've just agreed to show you the ropes and get you started and, introduce you to people in my network, but nothing beyond that. So the paradox here is, I think, a terrific mentor, a very committed mentor, does all the rest of those things. When my mentee needs it, I'm there as a counselor, there as a sponsor, I'm there as a coach. And I got your back, and I'm going to do all those things depending on what I sense you might need at this moment.
Yeah, I think the other part of that is, again, you've heard this a million times probably, Dove, that, again, we think of this kind of unilaterally as a single, all-knowing mentor, right? But no, that's not the case. We all know from experience that we all have lots of mentors, and they fulfill lots of different roles and functions for us in our lives, not just work, not just family, right? Not just personal, right? But they fulfill lots of different functions in our lives. And so understanding how particular mentors can do that with the different kinds of relationships and their ability and what domains that they're in. So, again, back to the sponsoring piece, overlapping with mentoring. Yeah, certainly within the work area, there might be a place where I can share as a mentor, I might be able to share my capital, that human capital that is so valuable with her, by putting her name out there, by opening the door, by making the connection, introducing her to my network. Sheryl Sandberg told us a great story about when she first started working with Larry Summers after graduating at Harvard, and how much Larry used to embarrass her, because everywhere they would go, Larry would go, "Hey, and you got to meet Sheryl Sandberg. She is like the most incredible person. Did I tell you she was number one graduating in her class, economics class at Harvard, and you just got to meet her, right?" And she pulled Larry aside at one point and said, "Hey, you got to stop doing that." And he's like, "Why? You're embarrassing the hell out of me." And he goes, "No, I have to do this for you. I do this for all the guys. I'm going to do it for you. This is me putting you out there so people see that I value what you bring."
Mm-hmm. For me, part of my classification of understanding of what a mentor is, as you were saying, Brad, is I'll move into any of the roles that I need to move into as it is needed. But as I always say, I have to care enough that I will show you where I stepped in the minefield so that you don't have to blow your legs off.
Yeah.
Right? And if you insist on going your own path, I will not stop you. I don't have the right to do that. And I think that that's the other thing around mentoring. I know for me, years ago, I would get pissed off if they didn't follow what I was guiding them. Which was not mentorship at all. It was dominance. But really grasping that I'm willing to walk you across that minefield because I've walked it. And I think that this is one of the things around mentorship that people forget is, I can coach you on something because I know the technology. So I'll give you an example, and I'll be totally open here with everybody. I am a spectacular trainer and coach on selling. I am awful at selling. I'm really good at teaching you how to do it, and I can have you tap into it. And I've trained people who become spectacular salespeople. I'm not good at it. I own that. And that's why I say in that, I'm a coach and a trainer, but I'm not a mentor. Yeah. Mentor means I've done it, I've walked it, I fell on my face, I bloodied my nose, I got kicked in the nuts, I got embarrassed, I got rejected, and I came back, and here's what I did, and here's how I do it. And here's the guidelines. Here's where you can stand. And if you go down that road, you could get your legs blown off, but you're free to do that. That's the difference for me, I think, is that I've got to be willing to care enough. And the other piece for me, and I'd love to know what you guys think. For me is I want to listen. As a mentor, I want to listen. I want to evoke from you. I want to elicit from you your vision of where you want to go. And then I want to feed that vision until it's so big that you don't recognize it. And then do everything I can to nudge you along into that vision until you've stepped into it and you go, "Ooh, I didn't know it was going to be here." That for me is what it's about.
Yeah, I got to jump in there, Dove. That you've so nicely articulated this whole area of social psychology, and it's actually called the Michelangelo phenomenon. And it's this whole idea of if you're mentoring a woman, which is what we're writing about, not putting on her any assumptions, not assuming you know where she wants to go in her career, but helping her, like Michelangelo. He always talked about a piece of stone that he was sculpting. He had no idea what it was going to be.
David was already in there.
Yeah, and the stone would speak to him, and he would begin his work, but he didn't tell the stone what it was going to be. He just unearthed it. And so I think you're right. Being a good mentor is sort of archaeology. You're helping dig down and help her discern what's the dream. What's the dream look like for you? And once you and I get a sense of that and get a glimpse of what the ideal would be, now I got a sense of what doors to open and how to champion you and how to put you forward. But I got to let that come from you. I'm just going to create a safe relationship environment where you can be honest and explore that dream that you've got. So, yeah, the Michelangelo phenomenon. I think a good mentor got to take that to heart.
Absolutely.
And then you were talking about self-disclosure. I think you led off with that. Dave and I talk about self-disclosure, but we think a good mentor is willing to do that. You got to care enough to self-disclose. Just make sure you're doing it for her. Because we see a lot of guys that just want to talk about themselves, and so
Unload some baggage,
or get therapy from your mentee, or whatever it is. But always just ask yourself before you self-disclose something: is this going to help her? Is this in her best interest somehow?
In my last book, it was called Fiercely Loyal. One of the things I talked about was the power of vulnerability in leadership.
Right.
And I've been interviewed literally hundreds of times about it, and that is always a subject that's something because it's so foreign for us in leadership to go into vulnerability, and the question that comes up is, well, I don't want to be telling my people about the fact that I'm going through a divorce or anything like that. And I say, if it will help your leadership, you need to do that, but you've got to be discerning, because vulnerability is not about indiscriminate emotional vomit. Yeah. And I think that some people think that that's what it is.
Yeah.
Just, well, you're my mentee now, so here's my emotional shit just dumped all over you, and that's not vulnerability. That's a toilet, as opposed to vulnerability, which is, as you said, is discerned, but it is reciprocal. If I'm a mentor, I believe, and I want to hear from you guys. But I believe if I'm going to mentor you, you have to trust me. And the number one building of trust is vulnerability. How do I know? Simple exercise. On one side of you, put a person you've known for whatever the period of time is, and on the other side, somebody else you've known for exactly the same amount of time. This one is somebody who is a fiercely loyal, true friend, and this person over here is a mentor. You've known them the same amount of time. So why do you trust this one and not that one? The answer is they know your shit and you know theirs. There was a mutual vulnerability. There's a reciprocity of that. And if we're going to serve each other, we've got to do that. But I don't know if people grasp the need for that discernment to say, which is what you just said, Brad, which is why I'm pointing this out. Does this help that person?
Yeah.
Or am I just telling them because I need to say something?
Yeah.
Am I, because one of the things I see now, as I've talked a lot about this and I train speakers, is I see people wanting to do this faux vulnerability, like faux fur. It's like, here's my fake look inside of me, but it's no substance to it. I'm not really letting you see anything. As opposed to, I'm wanting you to understand this and I want to have you, so here, I'm going to share this with you, see if it helps you.
Yeah.
Is that part of the process for you guys too?
Yeah, and I'll let Dave jump in too. Absolutely, Deb. And I like the way you use the word discernment. That's the word I would use. And especially when you're mentoring early in the relationship, a young woman, I would be careful how much I offer, and I'd think carefully, is this too early, too much? I know, just as you said, that as that relationship goes on, if it's going to be healthy, it's got to be reciprocal, and it's got to be transparent. And trust comes from self-disclosure. The more we know each other, the more trust there is, the better, the stronger the working alliance. That's all good. But as you said, the discerning mentor does that in a gradual way in terms of how much personal self-disclosure I do. I don't want to overwhelm her right off the bat with my own, personal experience. But as we get closer, trust develops. You bet. I'm going to be willing to share that
But
more.
the other thing about, I'll let you come in a minute, Dave. But the other thing about that is that as a mentor, you're also modeling.
Yes.
So if you go in and emotionally vomit, then she goes, okay, this is a place to come emotionally vomit. If you go in with discernment and disclosure, then you get discernment and disclosure back. And I think that that's the key that we got to understand is actually stopping and going, not only does this help, but am I modeling a behavior that I want to see back? Because I can't say, well, you shouldn't do that if I just did it.
Yeah.
You know, that was our dads. That was our dads. Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah,
it's not meant to.
Part of what you're modeling as a great mentor is boundaries. You got appropriate boundaries, and a good wise mentor is willing to be aware of what appropriate boundaries are early, and how those start to change a little bit as you become more like colleagues over time.
I was going to say, add on to that a little bit of. This has to be back to that mutual relationship is that, as it grows, you have to be able to ask and talk to your mentee again about what are some of the things that I'm doing or not doing that are helping and hurting this relationship. So if I talk about you this way or if I do this, so that you're encouraging the feedback, right? To get back into the two-way relationship. This also, we're talking to guys again, helps them, encourages them to have that conversation, and then also to engage in, again, this kind of a caring, showing that you care about the relationship, which doesn't necessarily come all that naturally to everybody.
There's a piece here that, we're kind of going around, but I think it's important, and I'd love to know where you guys are at with it and how if it plays into what you're doing. Again, background psychology for all three of us, but I used to teach a conscious parenting process. My wife and I taught it together, and about conscious relationship with your children. And we used to say that one of the most powerful things you'll ever do for your child is tell them I'm sorry, is to apologize to your kid. Because as kids, we look at parents as being perfect, and as children, we feel like we're imperfect. So when the parent reveals that they're not perfect and apologizes, it equalizes the relationship. And it doesn't mean you're not still, responsible to be a parent, but you are more equalized. You're out off the pedestal. And I've always said that is a very powerful position as a mentor. I want to ask, what am I doing that's not working for you? I want to ask, how can I be a better mentor? And I want you to have the courage to be able to say to me, I really don't like that you bring this up. And I go, shit, I'm so sorry. And then go through an actual conscious, we have a 5-step, conscious 5-step apology. So that person really knows that I heard that I'm doing something that is destructive or harmful. Do you guys see that as a vital, because for me, particularly if you're going to deal with women who generally, and it's only generally, but generally are more emotionally intelligent, if you're going to deal with women, from my world, you better learn how to apologize. And the guy says, well, I don't apologize. Some of them become president. I've never apologized. Is that
absolutely. And I would say that, the other aspect of that is you, if you learn to apologize, you learn to own. Right. Own who you are. Yeah. And also in developing that relationship, one of the aspects we haven't talked about yet is that, hey, as mentors, sometimes you're having to deliver some really hard, direct, our mentees talk about kind of this direct, brutal feedback.
Sure.
That is so critical, right? And so to receive that in a way that you get the most out of it, just like your children, right, is that you have to have a caring relationship. It can't be this personal attack on you. Right. And so if they know that, right, ahead of time, again, you can deliver that, and it can be so much more powerful. And women, they're looking for it. In many cases, they're afraid that they're not getting it. And unfortunately, they probably aren't in some cases. As many of the women we talked to, mentioned that they knew their mentors were not able to deliver that type of feedback to them. But the ones who did get it that way, were just so overwhelmed by that and the caring, right? Which seems almost counterintuitive, right? Because you're getting this, oh my God, you really sucked at this, and here's why, and here's how you better do it next time. And these are very senior people. I mean, we're talking presidents, CEOs, board members, and that is really powerful, great work.
But it only works in the context of this committed, caring relationship that you've already worked hard to create.
Got to do the work.
You've laid the groundwork, so she knows now when you come to her with some criticism that she knows you're in her corner, and if not you, who's going to tell her that? You're the guy who's earned. I'd say you've done the work and earned the right to give her that kind of feedback, and she's going to receive it in the positive way. And your whole apology thing, I love that. And Dave and I have been writing lately about mentoring perfectionistic women.
Yeah.
And one of the things you can get from a perfectionist is this terror of making a mistake, because they're already very self-critical. And so if you as a mentor who they respect will model making mistakes and apologizing and saying, can I just point out to you how I blew it 5 times this week? I just want to share with you. If you're willing to do that, you're essentially giving her permission to not be perfect, because you know what? Her mentor's not perfect. So how's that going to be catastrophic for me if I make a mistake?
There's a sociologist, I'm trying to remember his name, Rappel. You might know him, a French guy. Does a lot of big, powerful work with like major corporations and talks about cultural perceptions and how they're different in different countries. For instance, he says, the cultural perception of cheese in France is a family member because it's always on the table, it's always around, there's always cheese. He says cheese in America represents death because it's always wrapped in plastic and shoved into the cold box. Like a body in the morgue. Guy's got great insights, right? Brilliant. But one of the things
Wisconsin are not liking you right now.
But one of the things that he said that I thought was phenomenal, he said the North American perception of perfect. He goes, North Americans are obsessed with doing it perfect.
Yeah.
But what does perfect represent? And one of my exercises in my workshops that I do with leadership groups and CEOs and stuff is I say, have you ever been to a funeral? You guys have been to funerals, I'm sure, right? And when there's a funeral, you know as well as I do that we canonize the dead. We turn the dead into saints. So if Bob was an asshole, and he was always an asshole, but on one day he gave $5 to a homeless person, the person delivering the eulogy focuses on the $5, right? And doesn't actually talk about who the person really was. And so what we do, and this is what Rappel talked about, was that perfection only exists in the American mind after you're dead. You have to be dead to be perfect. And when I work with a client who's running perfectionists, I actually explain that to them, that the only way you're ever going to get to be perfect is at your eulogy. And by the way, the people in the back pews won't be saying that. The people in the front will, but the people in the back pews, there's going to be some there who didn't like you, that got invited, who didn't like you, and they're going to say some shit you don't want to hear. So that, for me, is a great wake-up call around this whole idea about being perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm a mentor. I'm not perfect. And sometimes if I've got a really tight, somebody who needs a polectomy, you might understand what that means. I got a really tight, he's shaking his head, client who's got that, I will purposely swear. Now, I do swear, but I will purposely swear to shove that out, just to get them a little uncomfortable, to show I'm mentoring you and I'm making you cringe. What does that tell you? I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
Now, if you come back to me and say, I'm really uncomfortable with the swearing, could you hold it down? I'll say, probably not, but I'll do more for you because it's part of my lexicon. But I will make an effort to do more of it. But I will not swear to hurt you or to offend you. And it's like, again, knowing that boundary stuff, but also getting that we have got to, as mentors, we've got to convey you don't have to be perfect. And I think that so much of that has been done, particularly with guys. And so it makes it very difficult, particularly for a woman who's in touch with her emotions, who's connected, to feel like, oh my God, I'm an emotional mess. Not really, but she might feel like that in the face of a man, whereas she might not feel like that in the face of the woman. How do you get guys to grasp that horrible, it's not really, but that horrible thing that if her eyes start leaking, what do you do? Because most guys want to go, shh, don't cry, oh my God, don't cry, because it freaks them out.
Tears, yeah.
Yeah, this comes up all the time. We just talked about it the other day. I was on a panel. We were talking about this, about, well, what happens if, God forbid she becomes emotional and she starts leaking these tears. And it's like, well, first of all, you need to reframe what that means maybe and think about it that, hey, if you as a guy, if there's another guy next to you and he starts crying, that gets a little awkward sometimes because as guys, that might mean something very different. But for a woman, it probably doesn't mean what you think it means. And, several of the women we talked to in the interviews for the book talked about the fact that, sometimes when they get really overjoyed or very passionate about something, tears start flowing. But it doesn't mean they're emotionally distraught and they're going to fall apart. No. And, one woman, she talked about the fact that when she got really excited about something, she would start, she had tears coming out of her eyes. And her male boss was really uncomfortable with it to the point where he eventually started saying, "So Dana, unemotionally, how do you feel about this?" And to the point where she'd walk in, she's like, "All right, I just can't talk to you." Because if that's the way it's going to be, then that doesn't work. And so we just, as guys, we talk to them about learning that, hey, that emotions are, again, socially and culturally a little bit different for us as guys, that we've been, probably a lot of us as boys we're shamed into not crying and say, don't cry, don't be a little girl. Yeah. But girls, again, they have a lot more room to be allowed to show that emotion, that expression in that way.
Yeah. And again, it's something that we as men need to learn from them. Yeah. It's not something we need to correct. So this is the thing I think is really important in what you guys are talking about, is it's not something we need to correct, it's something we need to learn.
We gotta learn.
Don't fix them.
And your own discomfort, Dove, about tears, it's not an excuse.
No.
So we tell guys, you need to get over it. You need to do something active so that you get more used to tears and more comfortable. You mentioned Oprah. Go watch reruns of Oprah over and over again. Just get used to people crying, and then maybe you won't flip out when one of your female mentees has some tears. So, if you're going to be a good mentor, you don't get the privilege of throwing a referee flag and saying, "Whoa, I can't do tears." No, I don't do that. If you're a mentor, you do tears. You can sit there.
But again,
I would expect there'll be some tears. You better buy a couple boxes of Kleenex.
But it's also that piece around that I believe a great mentor. So the old idea of a mentor is you're already there and you're going to help the people to come to there. And for me, I know in my own life, to be a great mentor means I've committed to not stop growing. I've committed to continuous growth, continuous evolution. And so if something's making me uncomfortable, that's something for me to look at, not for something for me to correct. There's something for me to examine, something for me to learn from, rather than for me to try and correct in you. And I think that's one of the part of the mind shift that's got to happen for guys, is for us to get away from this idea that, we've already got it down and it's like, I want to bang your head on the wall.
Yeah.
So, just very quickly, I want to just flip the tables a bit. What about women mentoring men?
Yeah, absolutely. And, thinking about this hopefully in the next few years, hopefully not too many more years, that we begin to see more women leaders, women managers in these senior leadership positions. And they're going to be in those roles now where they're the ones mentoring younger, more junior men out there. And it's not going to be just mentoring, right? It's going to be leading and managing a lot more male workplace than we've ever seen before. So we think that's where we ought to be focusing our attention here coming up.
Absolutely.
And certainly there's a lot of discussion going on today. You hear, and I know you've heard this about talks about reverse mentoring, and certainly some more research coming out today even that shows the advantages of men who have been mentored by women.
Absolutely.
Again, seeing the whole range of interpersonal skills on the increase, and again, more in favor of and supporting gender equality in the workplace, better outcomes for their organization. So, lots of reasons there that we think that's coming. That's going to be a thing for everybody.
Yeah, and there'll be this dynamic. We talk about manuscripts and what guys need to watch out for when they're mentoring women. Well, I think women are going to have to be on guard, because when they're mentoring young men, these guys are going to be looking for mommy. That dynamic will come into play. She's going to have to be careful not to mother him, and even if he's pulling for those kinds of things in the relationship.
Yeah. But again, I think, this is why I think your book is important, because I think as psychologists, you guys can point out stuff that I don't think people are going to notice. Like, as you said, that other way around, you're the male mentor and you're mentoring somebody female, and you can't play in the daddy role. And that shit inside of guys that we've been conditioned with around fixing things immediately puts you into the daddy role, and there's nothing empowering about that. And as a mentor, it's our job to empower. So, great stuff, guys, really is. I want to ask you a final question, and for both of you. What is, on a day when things are really rough, when it's not going right, it sucks for whatever the reason is, what is it that gets you out of bed? What is it that lights your fire? What is it that cranks you?
Yeah, I'll start. It's I got to tell you, Dove, it's such a good question, but I got to say, Dave and I are spoiled. We're spoiled big time. We work at this place, the U.S. Naval Academy, where we drive through the gates in the morning. It's 5:30 or 6. These young men and women, college-age folks, they're some of the brightest folks in our country. Come get appointments here. They're up exercising. They're doing all kinds of crazy leadership and other stuff. Then you get to have them in class. They're so articulate and bright and committed and patriotic. We can hardly wait to get to work. And I think part of how we get through those days is interact with the students that we're privileged to interact with. And then if that doesn't work, a good pint is really helpful at the end of the day. Good IPA.
Good IPA especially, yeah. That's always good.
Pale ale.
Yeah, I echo what Brad says there. And in particular, knowing this, this cohort of students, right? These are the ones who are volunteering, right? They're very, again, articulate, bright. They could go to a lot of other schools right out there, but they're volunteering to serve in our country. And service in our country is not necessarily something that we see as much of anymore. I think we should have a lot more of it, but to see that they have this desire and this burning need to go out there and to serve people, and just to see how that comes out every day and working with them, I mean, you cannot help but just be so full of it in the morning to get up and go, and even when you're having that crappy day,
sure,
to get a chance to go walk into the classroom or to have one of the students pop in and to talk to you about what they're doing and how we can work on something together. I mean, it makes all the difference.
It does. Well, guys, I really want to thank you for being here. Please let our viewers and our listeners know where it is they can find out about your book, about you guys, about maybe potentially bringing you in to speak, whatever it would be. How would they find you?
So they can find me at wbradjohnson.com.
I'm at davidgsmith.phd.com.
Okay, we will make sure that those are both put up. Is there a separate website for the book?
There's not, but it's right up there waiting for everyone on Amazon.com. So it's easy to find.
Athena Rising, How and Why Men Should Mentor Women.
Well, guys, I really appreciate you being here with us today. I think this is a vitally important conversation, and I would suggest to you, dear listener, dear viewer, that whether you are a mentor or not, as in the role of mentor, I would highly suggest that you get a hold of this book and the simple level of just raising your level of emotional intelligence in your conversations with with women and with other men, so that you can actually broaden yourself as a leader in so many ways. I just think this is a vitally important conversation, and it's something that we all need to step into. I do believe, as the Dalai Lama said, that the world will be changed by the Western woman, but I've always said that for that to happen, it has to be facilitated by us men. We have to get out of the way. And you know what these guys just said, you gotta listen. We are here to hone, not clone. Hone, not clone. Profound, gentlemen. Thank you very much for being here. I sincerely appreciate it. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope you'll stay with me till the very end. I'm just going to sign off and say goodbye to everybody. I want to thank you all for tuning in today, for being part of this show. And again, remember to share the show with everybody you know. We really appreciate it. Get yourself over to iTunes, rate, review, and subscribe to the show. And remember that companies that get to the top and stay at the top are purpose-driven. And if you're truly serious about having the laser beam clarity that you need to have your company's focus on purpose, and building a culture of high-performing, highly engaged leaders who are fiercely loyal, then reach out to me, Dov Baron, through fullmontyleadership.com, where we provide the essential leadership skills for today's good leaders who are committed to becoming great leaders of tomorrow, while growing your people and your bottom line. Because the hard skills will get you there, but it's the soft skills that will keep you there at the top and make sure that you're not all alone when you get there. Remember to go over to matrix.fullmontyleadership.com and you can get your authentic leadership assessment tool absolutely free. Till next time, I'll see you at fullmontyleadership.com. And this is Dov Baron saying, stay curious, my friends. Stay curious about how you can put your agenda to the side and mentor all those who come before you. Remember, it's about honing, not cloning. This is Dov Baron, and I am